Okay. So this is that spread again. What I'm going to do first is actually let you know that these are essentially the photos that I grabbed here. I have this logo that I'm working with, so I'll open that up. So that's my brand. I also have just a bunch of other kind of like pictures that I thought I could use potentially. So here's one. Let's see, here's another. Now this is actually my typography that I want to work with. So I'm going to open that up into Photoshop right away. And so that's going to open. And then this imagery here is actually some illustration that I found on Unsplash as well that I wanted to use in the design. Typically when I have, I'm trying to spell out the word classic here, so I have it in a couple different pieces because I was trying to get really close to this image and it wasn't really capturing all of it. So really the first thing I typically would do for something like this is actually going to push it in Grayscale. And really I'm just going to unlock this background by double-clicking that layer and then hit image size. And I want to see, so the width is 34 by 45 off of my iPhone there. So what I want to do is actually bring this resolution to 300, and that's going to still keep it really large at about an 8.5 by 11-ish. So I'll hit OK there. And so the way I'm going to select this type is actually I'm going to use my channels panel here to actually load this gray channel as a selection. What I need to do though is make sure that like this white area around my text is not going to come across. I want it to be as completely transparent as possible. So really what I need to do is go into my levels and actually make the whites a lot brighter and then the darks quite a bit darker. So I'm kind of moving things, moving these this levels slider here to kind of achieve that. And I'll just hit OK. So another thing I want to do is actually go image adjustments. Yeah, maybe I'll try and do levels again, just to make sure that I have the contrast right. Actually move this middle slider a bit to the left. Because my ultimate goal is to make sure that like this is has as much contrast as possible. And then really roughly then I'm going to take my lasso tool and I'm actually going to just kind of really like rough this selection in, right? It's not going to be perfect, but I'm just going to try and lasso all the stuff that I want. So then I can really just get rid of all the stuff I don't. And so this one I want. And this piece I want. Alright, now I'm going to select that inverse of that. Delete everything opposite. So I'm going to rotate this canvas here. Actually, I'm just going to resize it. So I'm going to make this width become about 11, height 8.5. So just resize this canvas a little bit. Rotate this content. Okay, so this is all on the same layer at this point. I'm going to actually size this stuff down a little bit. And all these letter forms are just all kind of wonky different sizes and everything. So that's one thing to consider. So I'm going to want to get in here, isolate everything, size it up properly the way I want to see it in the end document there. First thing I'll probably want to do is go to channels and actually just load this channel as a selection. Really what this does is it selects all of the white pixels. Since this is the gray channel, actually it's selecting all of the gray pixels in the gray channel. So loading channel as selection, you can do this. I think we went over this too, using RGB color separations in CMYK in Photoshop. But whatever channel you select, if you hit load channel as selection, that selection will be made. At this point, I'm actually going to go back to the layers panel and then change the color mode of this document. Because I don't want this to be a one color gray. I wanted this to be a very, well, I don't want the blacks to be just 100% or 70 to 100% of black ink only. I wanted to incorporate cyan, magenta, and yellow and black ink all together to make the darks richer, like so the blacks richer. So I'm changing this document mode to CMYK. I'm going to add a new layer, and then I'm going to actually fill in this new layer my rich black color variables here, 100% of each color, and then I'll hit OK to fill that in. So what happens here is that you can very subtly see that there was a little bit too much gray there. So what I actually want to do is delete that layer, and I need to actually boost the contrast a little bit more here. I'm going to actually go back. I'm going to take a step back to my grayscale color mode again. I'm going to actually boost these levels up a whole lot more, so those whites are a lot brighter. So hopefully we don't have as much there. And then I'll repeat the process until I'm happy with what I filled there. Load that channel as selection again. Select my inverse. And change my color mode back to CMYK. Won't merge those. And fill it. Color. Okay. Alright, so that's got a lot better contrast there. I'll make a new layer for my background. I'll fill that. Oops, that's the wrong color. Fill it with white so I can see. Alright. Save this right away. So save that as demo. And I'm going to go in here actually and kind of break out these letter forms. So I want to make them on their separate layers. So I can actually move these around individually. One actually, instead of naming all these layers, I'm actually going to use the auto select option. So then I can actually just click and drag a layer without having to select it here on the layers palette. I'm going to do that once I kind of isolate all these letter forms on their different layers, just to make it a little bit easier to work with. Alright, so I'm just kind of cutting out each piece so it's on its separate layers so I can actually work with it a little bit easier. Let's see. Grab this one. Alright. And this last one is all alone. Okay, perfect. Next thing, I want to actually do the same process here because I have the letter I and I need one of the S's. So I'm going to unlock that one. Just essentially repeating the same type of process here. Boosting the levels. Probably want to boost them a lot more. from the white. And selecting these two pieces that we need, just these two letter forms here. And this I kind of actually scratched it on the copy of the syllabus that I had, so there are a lot of things that I need to make sure removed from that. Okay, I'm going to run a quick boost on the levels again. Here we go. It helps a little bit, I think. Okay, let me try that. See what kind of results we get. Let's see, change that mode. And see what my rich black does. Color, rich black. Okay. All right. Yeah, we get some dirtiness to it, but actually I kind of want a little bit of that. I'm going to scale this down. And just kind of repeat the same kind of copy and paste process here for this letter forms. Alright, put them on that separate layer. Okay. So once I have everything, I want to go in here and kind of rotate these letters around. Make them kind of size up together a little bit better. So with my auto select option on, I'm able to, let me see if I can align this. I'm able to just kind of click whatever element I need to move around a lot easier and rotate these around. I'm going to make this like a tiny bit smaller. This is where I'm kind of like refining sort of my sizing. I wasn't worrying too much about it as I was drawing it in. Because I knew that, you know, I would just bring it in here and kind of tweak it. Let's see. And I definitely wanted to have, you know, two different versions of this letter S, so it looked more hand-drawn rather than me just duplicating the same letter form. If I was going for this kind of hand-drawn look, then, you know, I might want to make the letter forms a little bit, be a little bit inconsistent. Okay. Pull my rulers out to see how I'm doing on my baselines. Again, I don't really want these to be too perfect, but I want them to be pretty close to the baseline, and I'll just kind of use my arrow keys to nudge them around. Okay. Something like that. And this really just came from like a very quick, like literally like this took like maybe a couple minutes to just sketch this out. So you can tell that in some areas too we have a little bit more opacity than others. So it's kind of replicating that pressure aspect of my pen. It's just extra stuff here I want to make sure that I get rid of. Alright, and so I'm going to actually just go to image trim. So I'm going to just trim all these transparent pixels off of that and then save it. So that's the first piece there, you know, my product name. This object here I'll mess with a little bit too. I actually want to increase the contrast of this background image as well. So this is all levels work. I'm just going to increase the darks and then increase the brights and hit OK there. I could actually just load I could, turn this grayscale, load the channel as selection, and fill this in with like a color or something. Maybe I'll do that. I'm not really sure, but I'll just keep it for now as this. Save it as I'll save it as a PSD file or Photoshop document. Call it drawings. All right, and then the other image I wanted to use was of the guy and the gal here. This one, I think I'm just going to increase the size of it, see if the size is good. Yeah, so I'm going to bring this to 300 so it's higher res. It's going to drop the size, width, and height-wise a little bit. That's fine. I'll go save it as a Photoshop document. All right, so just saving that. All right, figures. So then I'm going to go back into my document here. I'll keep my logo there for a second. In my document, I know that this left side is going to be my image area. So I'm going to go to File, Place, navigate to this Images here. Under my links folder, my artwork. The base of this composition is going to be those figures. So I'm going to put those guys in there. And let's see how large this is. This is 100% right now, so that's good. I'm going to bring this in, and you see these red marks here along the edge. That's my bleed line. So if you wanted to, so this is the area at which the artwork is going to come off the edge of the page. So we're going to have to actually make this image a little bit bigger to reach that bleed mark. So I'm going to scale it up from this top left corner here. And so inevitably that's going to lose some of our resolution, right? So if I go back to this original document, I'll copy the width here of this object. Under my links panel, I'll find it. And it's just a little bit off, right? So my actual pixels per inch is 300 according to this diagram. And effectively it's 290, so it's just under, right? It's, perfect. So typically, like a pre-press operator or someone in the print industry will like flag me for that and say, hey, you got to go back and change this or whatnot. So I usually just make sure that I do it before they even bother with it. So I'll jump into my document and open it up in Photoshop, and then just under image size, then I'll hit my resample button and just make that width adjustment. The height adjustment will automatically change. I'll try and let's see. Yeah, I'll just keep the enlargement option there, and I'll just save it. So then when I jump back, this image will then just update, and then I'll click on the image, and you can see it's at like 100% now. So, and this document is going to say it's 300 by 300. The only other thing that I actually have to do to this image is actually convert it from RGB to CMYK. InDesign is great because I was able to see that color space right away without having to open this in Photoshop to find it in that links palette. So I'll still have to open up Photoshop, but it's a lot faster to just see what needs to happen from InDesign and make that change in Photoshop. Especially when you have a bunch of images. So there we go. It's just updated now to CMYK. So now we're print ready and everything. One of the things I did want to do is actually kind of overshoot this this center piece with the image too. I wanted it to kind of cross over that gutter area, as they call it. So it's going to cross over the gutter just a little bit. I'm going to bring my type in, so my hand-drawn type there. I'm going to actually go File, Place again. And I have it named Classic Demo, so I'll open that. Oh, there we go. So one of the things I want to actually do is make sure that this type is legible on half of this area down here. And it doesn't really matter where this image goes, but you can see that over here it gets a little bit less legible. And actually, I'm going to want to actually make this image a little bit larger too, because I have to compensate for this white area. Because what my plan is I'm going to change this text to white so it comes off on this guy's jeans better. So I'm going to actually increase the size of him more. So as you can see, I'm slowly like building up this composition little by little, and I'm having to accommodate with these image sizes based on these decisions that I'm making. So again, I'm going to actually go back to Photoshop and then make my changes to both the classic type and then the image size of these figures. Alright, so image size. And so I simply just copied the width there for that piece. So I'll save that image size, so that'll be fine. And then on my type here, I'm actually going to do, now that I have everything in position, I'm going to actually select all these layers by shift-clicking them. And I'm going to go to my menu here and then merge them together. And then with these merged layers, then I'm actually going to duplicate them. So I'm going to hit Option, click, and drag. So I'm going to have two layers, right? So I'm going to have one black, and then this layer is going to be white in Photoshop. So I'll turn the black off, and then on white, then I'm going to hit Command A. And what that does is select all. Otherwise, you can just go up to Select and then All here. But Command A is a great shortcut to have. And then what I actually do is just nudge that layer back and forth to make sure that the outlines of this completely get selected after I select the whole canvas. And then I'm going to go to Edit Fill, Fill, and then I'm going to hit white. So I'm going to fill those letters with white. And then I'm just going to turn the white layer on and I'll save. So these changes will be reflected here in InDesign once I make that update. So my figures I'll update. And they're looking, yep, 300 by 300, that's good. And my classic here, verbiage, it's going to turn kind of white, right? So here what I'm going to do is actually crop down this here. So I'm going to make a copy of this layer, this classic layer. And I'm going to actually just hide this left part that's on to the left of this overlay. And I'm going to actually then go Edit, Paste, and Place. So now I'm pasting on top what I just copied, and I'm going to move the left left edge over to the right. All right. So I think I'm going to then click on this classic word here, and then on the left, I'm going to go to Object Layer Options to turn off the black layering, and I'll hit OK. It's a little bit hard to see, right? And on the right here, I'm going to actually do the same with my object layer options, but then I'm going to make sure that the black is on. So now I can kind of play with this a little bit. I can say, all right, this needs to be a little bit more kind of visible, right, this white area. So what I'm going to actually do is nudge this guy over a little bit. And I'm going to actually copy, I'm going to make a duplication of this. So I'm going to copy and then paste it in place to kind of increase the legibility of this, right? So now I have two transparent layers on top of each other, but them together is making this a little bit more transparent. That's kind of just a quick workaround for me to skip going back into Photoshop, and I'm just going to select these layers and group them together, and then just use their natural transparency to kind of make it more legible. Here on the black side, it's fine. It's not illegible, so I'll just leave it as one layer and then just group those together. And then maybe what I also want to do is actually bring in that illustration that I was using. So I'll edit, paste. Oh, you know what? Actually, it's place. So I'm going to undo that. File, place. And then I'm going to just navigate to that illustration file here. Drawings, here it is. No, open that. This is quite a large file, so I'll just scale this down. It's a really super high res. And so for this, I'm going to actually make an adjustment to the layering options here so I can kind of see the background. I just want to use this more as a texture, so I'm going to kind of rotate this a little bit. I don't want it to be so overpowering. So I'm going to kind of crop it down a little bit. And I'm actually going to throw it back a little bit. So I'm going to actually hit Command-Shift and then the left bracket to kind of send it to the back a little bit. And then I'll just do Command then right bracket to bring it up a couple steps. So I'm hitting that a couple times. There. So that's fine. So I have it in between the background and that word classic. So that's my goal. What I want to actually do is then change the layering options to this. So under the effects panel, I want to figure out what a good layering option will be for this. So multiply is my go-to. I'll go to that and say, that looks pretty good, right? So I can kind of see some of this texturing going on this the background here for this guy. I'll actually bring it in a little bit more. And what I really want to do is maybe just use it more as a background for the image of the guy behind him. So I'm going to bring it up a bit. So I want to just give this image like a little bit more interest. And that multiply kind of did it there. So then I also use this image on the top corner here for the background to bring more interest to that. If I want the scale to be a little bit of the same, I'll just delete what was in that text or that image box here in the top left corner and actually copy what's inside this image box to the left here, and then just click that image box up to the right corner. And I'm going to go edit, paste into. And so the scale of that illustration in the top corner now is the same scale as the illustration in the bottom corner. By just hitting paste into, it just pasted the exact size, 12% of its original size. So it's a massive, massive illustration file there. So my only other missing component here is my logo. So my logo, I actually used it down here in this area, but what I want to do is actually make it sort of more of a focal point here. So a quick way of doing it is I'm just going to hit the magic wand tool and then hit the logo over the black area, so every matching black area is going to be selected, and I'm just going to convert it to white and see how that looks. Maybe it's a little monochromatic. Maybe I just need like a little color or something. You know what? I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to make it white and then drag it over. Because what I can actually do is I'll copy, cut, and paste it right there. So what I can actually do is see if I can position it in a place that kind of makes sense. Or I can actually maybe even choose to change the color based on like one of these shoes here. If I can select it. Yeah, like red or teal or something. So I can actually use the I can select this logo file that I just kind of dragged over. If I actually save this as an AI file and place it in, I can't do what I'm doing now. And really complex vector art, if you drag it in, you're not going to be able to do it. But this vector art is simple enough to where I can drag it over and I can kind of manipulate it as it is vector artwork. So see, I kind of just can show and hide those outlines for it. But with that selected, if I hit I and I get my eyedropper tool out, I can actually go into one of these shoes and maybe sample like one of the colors so that I can actually like tie this thing in together. And so yeah, I'll just maybe, I don't know if I'm crazy about it. It's a little bit hard to see. But it's got enough impact with the color that I can maybe make it smaller, kind of tuck it in somewhere. Actually, you know what I'm going to do is keep it right there. And I'm going to go back to this image and kind of burn that area that's brighter so we can see this a little better. So again, I'm kind of just tweaking this back and forth, but I know pretty much what I want to do. I'll kind of tilt it a bit. I'm going to actually go back to my figures images, figures here, and reveal in Finder. And so around this guy's arm then, I'm just going to maybe burn this part out. Let's see, here we go, burn tool. Make my brush smaller, my exposure's good. I'll try the midtones. It's not really giving me anything. I'll need to do the highlights. This is helping. This is going to help. So I'll do a save and see what happens. Give it an update. Yeah, so that helps a lot actually. Maybe it's a little bit too much, but if I did the whole arm, you would probably never really tell the difference. So I don't really want to make it look like a shadow per se. Save. Yeah, it's not great, but let me see if I can. I'll just nudge it over to the left a little bit because I'm not crazy about that top left corner. And actually, I could almost even hide it with this logo. Yeah, it's decent. I'll actually bring this back. I liked it a little bit lower. So that's kind of an image composition that I came up with to sort of give the feeling of the brand of these shoes that I love, and then also really mess with the layout a little bit more too. So looking at this, I could say, all right, well, you know, all of my introductory pages for the piece is going to use you know, hand-drawn, sort of like three-dimensional looking, childlike type drawing with a lot of accented illustrations of these little kind of little button-looking illustrations there. And then just kind of like a lot of grungy imagery. And then so you can kind of establish that look and feel and apply it to your other pages. It doesn't have to be exact, but you kind of evoke that feeling essentially there. You will notice too that on the left side of the page here, there is no page number on this area. So you don't have to have a page number there because you have that area down here on the right. So typically, like in a catalog, if I have a page number on one side, you can assume that the page number that's not marked is either one digit lower or one digit higher, right? So that's kind of why that's missing there too. All right.